Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the Recall Town Hall. I'm Julie Hedrick. I'm the National President, and we're hoping that we can answer as many questions as possible for you today on a variety of topics of questions that we've received. Before we get started today, we're going to go through the room and around the room and have everyone introduce themselves and what they do here at APFA to help you with your jobs. Kathy, do you want to get it started?
Sure. Hi, I'm Kathy Sharp. I'm the APFA Health Chair.
Hi, I'm Marty McMillan. I am the Scheduling Chair, and welcome back.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Eric Harris, APFA Treasurer.
Hey, everyone. Brian Walsh, Contract Chair, DCA-based flight attendant.
Hi, everyone. I'm Josh Black, APFA National Secretary. Glad to have you today, and welcome back.
We also have with us Mark Littleton. And Mark,
sorry, forgot to unmute.
There we go.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I am Mark Littleton. I'm a 31-year flight attendant based in Charlotte, and I serve as the assistant to the president, Julie Hedrick.
And we also have David Arnett.
Hi there, I'm David Arnett. I'm a contract and scheduling representative, and I've been working through the unemployment project here. Welcome back, everyone.
Okay, and of course, welcome back. We are so excited that we have 7,966 flight attendants coming back. That was a very quick recall process, I know, as far as the bidding to accept the recall and then also for your base assignments. I can tell you we had been working on the recall process for quite a while, as all of you know and as all of you participated in the many events that we had to get the PSP extended. Throughout that entire process, we had also been working on how the recall process would work. And I am proud to say that the recall process, the JCBA was followed. So as far as I know, there's quite a few questions about how everyone was recalled and because of the base assignments, but I can assure you we followed the JCBA. Now, we would have loved for everyone to have been able to go back to their original bases, but as all of you know, there was the company decided to resize some bases at this time due to the changes in flying that have happened over the last year. Because of those base resizing, that is why obviously not everyone did end up going back to their bases, because we had a displacement process that happened in Phoenix. We also had Los Angeles and Miami did not return to the size of the base that they were prior to the recall. So while we know this is very difficult at this time for some of you who were displaced out of your bases, I do want to make sure you know that the JCBA was followed as far as the process. There is no passing in this recall because all of the flight attendants were called back. In the contract, the ability to pass and not come back is when there is a flight attendant junior to you who is still on furlough. There are no junior flight attendants who are still on furlough, so that is the reason why there is no passing allowed in this recall process. And we have been working as much as we possibly can to accommodate everybody and their needs. We know many of you have gotten other jobs and are unsure about coming back at this time. So I know some of you have taken the EVLOAs. The company has also been awarding PLOAs if you have a situation that requires you to not come back right away. So we have, I know there's quite a few questions here today about the benefits, about leave of absence, the recall process, vacations, unemployment, furloughs. So we're going to try and answer as many of those as we possibly can. Before we get started, I'm going to have Eric Harris, our National Treasurer, talk to you about your union dues. We've had a few questions here at APFA about this, and we want to clear up any questions you may have about that. So Eric, go ahead, please.
Yes, again, welcome back, everyone. We're glad to have you here. For those who are furloughed, obviously on this call, your furlough was from December 3rd through, October 3rd through December 1st due to the PSP. And anyone who has accrued dues during that furlough period who did not receive furlough pay, those dues will be forgiven February 1st. So you don't have to call or email us until then. If you still see a balance or you receive a statement, go ahead and give us a call. And you're able to see your balance by logging onto the APFA website and clicking in My Account, and you can check your balance there. Also, for those with dues coming out of your paycheck, you don't have to do anything to resume that. That'll be automatically handled. And if you receive the paycheck on December 24th, you should see it come out of there as well.
Okay, thank you, Eric. All right, and before we get started, Josh is also, as a lot of you may know, we have an election coming up very soon for our base presidents, base vice presidents, and our BCRs at our base. So Josh is going to give you a quick update on where you will be voting for those positions at what base.
Hi, everyone. Josh Black here again. Julie's right. We have base elections coming up for a 2-year term. The willingness to serve are due tomorrow by 10 a.m. And ballots will be mailed tomorrow. Any candidates will be announced after about noon. And then ballots will be mailed out to the membership on February 3rd. The ballot count will take place on March 5th. You will be voting in the base that you have on record as of February 3rd. So everyone's bases, if you are displaced right now, your base of record will be effective January 31st. So you'll be voting in your new base if you've been displaced.
Okay, thanks, Josh. Okay, let's get started with some of these questions. Okay, the first question is, will we be eligible to apply for family leave once we return to active status in March? And Brian Walsh, I believe you're going to help us with that.
So you are actually able to apply or renew your FMLA right this very moment, and I would encourage you to do so to start the process sooner than later. That way you're able to have your FMLA up to date when you're ready to step back onto the line.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Okay, and the next one? Okay, all right, next question will be, I'll be going in maternity disability leave and plan to take a baby bonding via family leave after my leave is over. Since I have been furloughed and my family leave hours currently state ineligible, will I be able to take family leave baby bonding after my maternity disability is over? What other leaves will I be able to take for baby bonding?
Sure. So a good thing to keep in mind is that as we are being processed from furlough back to active flight attendants, there has been a little bit of lag time in the departments that are processing the furloughed flight attendants. You may see that your FMLA hours are ineligible. If you do continue to see that, please send an email to either contact@apfa.org or health@apfa.org, and we can follow up with the leave department to make sure that they're completing their audit in a timely manner to make sure that everyone's FMLA hours are able to be reviewed so they're able to use their FMLA hours as intended. In terms of doing anything after baby bonding, you are able to take a personal leave of absence after you've exhausted both maternity and baby bonding leave.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, next we're going to hit some leave of absence questions. I'm taking the 18-month EVLOA. Will I get my crew badge and parking pass back? If so, what are the next steps? I understand I won't have priority whatsoever to flight attendants going on the line. Brian, you want to answer that?
Sure.
So first question is do they get their crew badge back and their parking pass?
So you will be getting your crew badge back. You will be getting your crew badge back when you are scheduled to get your fingerprint. And in that appointment process, you'll be getting not only your badge, but you'll be getting, you will not be getting your parking pass back at that time. It's just one of the terms of the EVLOA. If you are not currently in the top 3,000 flight attendants, I know it's really hard, but you do need to be patient and just wait for them to process the top 3,000 to get fingerprinted first, and then they'll continue processing down the seniority list to complete that process.
Thanks, Brian. Okay, I believe Mark Littleton is going to help us answer this next question. According to the recall letter, I will be paid for 19 hours per month since I was on a PVLOA before the furlough. Is this a requirement from PSP2 or APFA contract? Is it the PSP2 offer 70-hour pay per month to all furloughed flight attendants?
Hi, great questions. It's important to remember that the PSP2 is, first of all, not specific to flight attendants. It covers all airline employees in the country who were furloughed. So what the PSP2 requires is that you be returned to a paid status, and that you be, as of December, and then it also requires that you be recalled to work pursuant to the recall provisions of your contract, the JCBA in our case. So you'll be paid the 19 hours per month for the VPLOA because that's the pay status you were on when you were furloughed, and you'll return to that same pay status. The 70 hours per month is based on what our contract requires flight attendants to be paid. It is not a subject of the PSP itself.
Okay, thank you, Mark. And I've got one more for you while you're there.
Okay.
With the recall of our furloughed flight attendants, will AA be offering the 70-hour paid leave to senior flight attendants again, similar to this summer? And if so, when do you anticipate this happening?
We don't know that there's going to be another offering of 70-hour paid leaves because the PSP required that the furloughed flight attendants be returned to a pay status. That's not optional. The company has to do that, and so that's why the flight attendants being recalled are receiving the 70 hours per month right now, and again, that's a requirement of our contract. It's also important to remember that what provided the funding for the 70-hour leaves that were offered previously was the first round of the PSP funds. So if we get to the end of this round and everyone has been recalled, we don't know what's going to happen after come April. If there will be more stimulus money coming, or if everybody's just back to work and earning what we earn because the vaccines have taken off. So at this point, we can't say that there will be any 70-hour paid leaves offered going forward. We just don't have enough information to know. Thanks,
Mark. Okay, the next question is, when will the list of recalled flight attendants who are awarded leaves be posted for all to see? We don't have a date for that yet, but I will be pushing for that to happen in the next day or two. I know the list is there, and I think that we should probably see that in the next day or two. But we'll go ahead and make sure we get that information off to the company to make sure we get that out as soon as they get that out as soon as possible. Okay, the next question is, with the political turmoil that's been occurring in our country, many are curious as to how the company will ensure that its recalled employees are returning to a safe, non-hostile work environment. Well, we just had a call prior to this with the company, with corporate security, and I can tell you that what happened last week, obviously everyone has taken very seriously from the minute we realized what was happening. We were in touch with the company, and they were acting as fast as they could to make changes as quick as possible to our hotel locations, our vans, making sure that we were in private vans or that we had the access to Uber credits so that we could take an Uber to get from a hotel to the airport. There will be extra security in the airports, especially this next week. I can tell you we are learning as much as we possibly can from what happened next week. We've been in constant contact with the flight attendants that were on flights, and we're doing everything possible because the safety and security of our flight attendants is our #1 priority. So we are all taking it very seriously, and we definitely want to make sure that all of you are safe when you are flying at work. Okay, let's see here. Let's move on to the recall process. It looks like we've got quite a few questions on the recall process. And okay, the first question is, for those flight attendants that are not on the first 3,000 recall to flying status, when should we expect to get back our tablets and badges? And Brian, I think you're going to answer that.
So as you can imagine, recalling close to 8,000 flight attendants is quite a process. Right now, the top 3,000 flight attendants are being prioritized. Of those top 3,000 flight attendants, they're fingerprinting and getting folks in their grace month of CQ, followed by those in the top 3,000 that are QI, and then the top 3,000 of those in the top 2,000 that are in their base month. After that, they're doing everybody else who's remaining in the top 3,000 flight attendants. Once they process that top 3,000 flight attendants group and those 4 subsets following, they'll be getting to work on the remaining 5,000 flight attendants. So that so far is kind of the general timeline. They're looking to get the top 3,000 in active status and being able to bid for the March bid month. And so we hope to get the rest of the remaining flight attendants active and able to fly soon after that.
We're hopeful for April, right? I know that's one of our other questions. I know we have had a lot of questions is why is it taking so long to get even the first 3,000 fingerprinted? Today we found out that 1,500 of our flight attendants have either been fingerprinted already or scheduled for fingerprinting, which is good news. But what you have to realize is this is not just almost 8,000 flight attendants returning to work, right? We had 19,000 employees at American who were furloughed. They are all returning. So while we would have loved to have this process to go on a lot faster and to get everyone back as soon as possible for the February bid month, it's just not possible with the numbers that we need for the fingerprinting process, as well as the training. Okay, next question. Brian, this is yours also. I was on a PVLOA prior to the furlough. I have returned to my PVLOA until May 2021 and will then start an EVLOA. I've accepted recall, completed fingerprinting, 12/29, and received my ID from my FSM on 12/30. My other airline and CJ privileges have not been restored. I understand that I am to return to the terms of my PVLOA, which includes the other airline privileges and jump seat privileges. I've been given conflicting information from the travel planner and flight attendant questions. Can you please clarify and assist with the restoration of my privileges?
Absolutely. So to keep things consistent across the recalled flight attendant work group, the company has stated that OAL and Z and CJ privileges will be activated on March 2nd. So that's when you can expect to have those privileges turned back on.
And hopefully by March 2nd, we will have the majority who are, because they have to, in order to be able to bid, to be back for April, you have to be able to bid in March. Okay, so hopefully the majority of our flight attendants will all be turned on March 2nd. Okay, next question. I was displaced from LAX to DFW and have filed a priority of return form to get back to LA. If subsequently furloughed from Dallas and recalled again, will my original priority of return bid to LA still be honored? Mark, you want to answer that one?
Of course, yes. Your priority return to Los Angeles would stay on file while you're on furlough. It goes into an inactive status during the period of your furlough, and then once you return to an active status, it would go back into active and be processed accordingly. The JCBA language that spells that out is in section 22H, as in Herald 5. So if you'd like to look up that language, it's section 22H5.
Thank you, Mark. And when following the recall process, that is in 22 and 23. So for all of those who want to go back and read about it, you can find that information in those sections. Thanks for referring to the contract. Okay. Although I am on a medical leave, I am being told I must fly to my base of record to complete fingerprints. My medical condition prevents me from flying anytime soon. Can I complete fingerprints closer to where I live? Brian?
Sure. So what we've heard from the company is that if you are on a longer-term medical leave, that is to say you're not returning in either February or March or April, you will not be required to return for fingerprinting. If there are any extenuating circumstances, please reach out and we'll be more than willing to assist you, see if we can find any reasonable accommodation to a request due to medical conditions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next two questions are about grievances filed on behalf of the displaced flight attendants. And the questions are, how long will the grievances take to be heard? There are a few grievances that have been filed overall. One of the situations that we're looking at with the recall process is for the base bids. We know that we had quite a few flight attendants who bid for bases and they were not received by the company. And so I can tell you that we are working on, we are hoping to prevent that from going to a grievance and that we can work with the company to solve those issues. There were, I think, Brian, we have, maybe 20 or 30 flight attendants in that situation. So we have your names. If you haven't contacted our contract department, please send an email to contract@apfa.org. And we will make sure that we log you into that. Most of the flight attendants, I believe, that have contacted us do have a screenshot of their base bid. And I know a lot of those flight attendants were from Los Angeles that have contacted us. So as far as the grievance process goes for something like that, we're hoping to resolve that issue without having to go through the full grievance process. As far as the grievance, because of the number of flight attendants who did not return to Los Angeles, that it was much less return to Los Angeles than originally thought. We will discuss that with the company as soon as possible, and we will have meetings with them and try and resolve, see if there's any resolution that we can do to make that happen any faster. But that, of course, now mind you, everything was done in seniority order. We had to honor seniority. That's part of our recall process. And so anyone who would, let's say, be able to get back into a base, it would be done by seniority order. Okay. Mark, I think you're going to help me out with this one. I am 4,600 on the recall list. I've been displaced from my home in Los Angeles and thus filed a priority return. I think we actually have already answered this. What happens if a second round of furloughs occur? It looks like we have quite a few flight attendants worrying about if they would lose that priority return. And as Mark stated earlier, that will not happen. That if you're furloughed again, it will just be inactive. And when you come back again, that priority return is still in place for you. Any additional, Mark, that you want to add into that?
No, I think you got it all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next question is, what is APFA doing to have fingerprinting available at each and every base for recalled flight attendants instead of flying them to other bases with such limited flights? We got an update on this today, and I think you'll like this.
Yep. Just this morning, we did get an update that through the efforts of Boston, Amy and Kelly in Boston, and Tim and Anthony in San Francisco, they're able to secure local dates for fingerprint processing. So that would certainly help reduce the needs for having flight attendants travel out of base to get fingerprints to be able to return them to active staff.
Yeah, I think the companies said today that they're trying to make sure every flight attendant can do it at their base if possible. So we may have some more dates also in San Fran, Boston, right? And they're working on the board. Okay. Okay. Why were we told to send our equipment to our old base if we transferred October 1st? It's extremely inconvenient that we are being made to take a flight to our old base to pick up our equipment when we obviously no longer live in the area where we're transferred. So sorry. For example, I transferred from Dallas to Chicago October 1st and moved to Chicago. I was told to mail my equipment to my old base, so I complied, and now I have to fly to Texas to pick it up. Ryan, can you help us out with that?
Yep, so I certainly understand the frustration of returning your equipment into one base and subsequently transferring into another. The furlough process and the recall process has been difficult administratively, and because you dropped your equipment off at one base, the company is requiring you to pick it up at the same base that you did drop it off. We did try to explore some options to try to make it easier for flight attendants to get their equipment again, but this is the resolution that we did come to.
Okay. When should we expect to return to active flying status if we're at the bottom of the seniority list? I'm in the 20-01 and class and have seen some say summer and others say everyone will be back for April bid month. The goal is to have everyone back for the April bid month. That is for sure. I think, you know, it's hard to say. I mean, this last year it's been hard to say about a lot, but they are working very hard to get everyone fingerprinted and trained by the March, it would be March, to be able to bid for April. We'll give you an update. We'll talk to the company about also updating everyone to know where we're at in the process so you can have some sort of idea of that. I mean, I completely get it. If your number, you know, 7,000 something, we should have a better picture of this probably by mid-February. So we will pass that information along to the company, and we will also make sure to get the information out as soon as we have any update on that. Okay, next question. What happens if we are in the top 3,000 recalled and do not get fingerprinted in time for bidding in February? I still do not have a fingerprinting appointment, and several who are junior to me, not the top 3,000, have already been done and processed. It was my understanding the company was prioritizing the top 3,000 of furloughed flight attendants for return to the line the first week of March. Brian?
Sure thing. So I can't speak to any of the flight attendants who may not have been in the top 3,000 being able to get fingerprinted, but I did want to walk you through the process for those in the top 3,000 flight attendants. And while you may see some folks getting fingerprinted in the top 3,000 who may be junior to you or in lower classes. So out of the top 3,000 flight attendants, they're looking to fingerprint and train the people who are in their grace month of CQ first. And then following that, those are who are in their top 3,000 who are QI. And then after that, they're wanting to fingerprint and train everyone who's in the top 3,000 in their base month. Once those three groups are fingerprinted and trained, or fingerprinted rather, they will be moving on to everyone else who does not need subsequent training. So I know it's really hard to be patient in this process, but you will be contacted to set up your fingerprinting and be ready to bid and fly for the March bid month.
Okay, Brian, it looks like we have about 4 or 5 questions about people in the top 3,000, right? And they're all kind of wondering about that process. It looks like we probably need to make sure we get some information out, a hotline, because if we're seeing this many questions from the top 3,000, it looks like they need more information. So I think you've covered pretty much what most of them are asking. This one flight attendant is number 3,275. You absolutely could be ready to go for the March bid month flying. So because they are going to go through the list, like Brian said, and they're going to keep working through it. So at 3,275, you could be one of the flight attendants who ends up being ready to fly in March. So we'll try and get out more information about that. I think that's really important, rather than going, these are all kind of individual cases. But I think what we can do is take these questions and formulate a hotline to help with some of these answers, okay, so everybody can have the information. Okay, let's see here. Okay, the next question is, any update regarding the base miss award, and will it be resolved? And I believe that is, the question is, if you submitted a ballot and you did not receive a base that you should have by your seniority, which what we heard from the company is there were quite a few that they did not receive ballots. And I know a lot of you have taken the screenshots of your bid. So again, please contact Brian at contract@apfa.org and make sure he has that information. And yes, we absolutely are trying to resolve those issues. Okay, if we've been displaced to another base, how do we submit the forms to return to our original base? So I believe they're asking about where and how do you fill out the priority of return form?
So there are a couple ways to fill out the priority of return form.
Well, I know one is in Comply, right? And you can now get Comply on your computer. You don't have to have it on your tablet, right? We have a hyperlink for that, and we'll make sure to put that out, right? And in Comply, where do they go? To the forms?
Yep, so you'll go to your forms, and then once you get to the forms homepage, there are two forms that you can request. One is the priority of request form, which is about halfway down the page. And then if you're also looking for displacement settling days, that's going to be the first form that's listed on that homepage.
Okay, so they can get that on their tablet. If they don't have their tablets yet, they can get that by logging in. And I believe it's Comply 365. I'm trying to remember the hyperlink. I can look it up here.
It's aa.comply365.net. The email was originally sent out on December 28th that had this link in there, but we will also be putting out a hotline that will show you how to get to this page and walk you through that process as well.
And we've talked to the company also about, they said they're going to put this form on the flight service website, right? And you can fill it out, and then you would be emailing it to FA Questions. So there'll be two ways for you to fill out a priority of return. And with the priority of return, I know there is a deadline of April 1st for you to get that in by, but you're going to want to fill that out as soon as possible. As you know, we have a transfer process every month. The January 26th is the next award for April. And so you'd want to have it in by January 26th, if at all possible. And then, of course, February 26th will be for May. So even though the deadline is April 1st, you're going to want to get that priority return filled out as soon as possible. Yes.
And if I could just add something, for those flight attendants who are submitting their priority of return in hopes to get back to their original base, if you have your priority of return form on file, as the transfer window closes, that form will be read and you will have the priority of return in place to be processed in February for the April transfer award.
Yep. Yep. Brian, priority of returns are only for vacancy openings, right? So you would only receive, the priority return only is looked at for the vacancies. For the mutual process, the priority return is not looked at. It's a different process. Okay, so just wanted to, we'll put more information out about that. I know we've been working on that. Okay, next question. When will we have access to the Learning Hub? How about we do this one this time? Brian?
So everyone should have access to the Learning Hub right now. If you are having any issues accessing the Learning Hub, you can just log on to the Flight Service website and use the live chat feature, and they'll be able to assist you if there's any WBTs that you're having issues with or Training Hub in general. They should be able to solve that for you. But right now, everyone, no matter where you are in the recall process, should have access to the Training Hub.
Okay, and when will they be able to order their uniform pieces?
So we'll be having more information about the uniform ordering pieces this week. The goal is to be able to have you have access to your uniform dollars and to be able to order them a month prior to going back on the line.
Okay, we're going to do a few more recall, and then we're going to skip down to vacation. I want to make sure we get as many variety of questions here as possible. So, Brian, next question. Will the DOT drug test be required and or scheduled at the same time as the fingerprinting for the criminal background check?
So with the PSP legislation this time around, there is no requirement for the DOT drug testing.
Okay, thank you. All right. And will recalled flight attendants be placed on reserve once returned to active flying status? Maybe we should have Marty answer that one since you've been answering everything. I know she knows that since she's our scheduling chair.
Sure. So anytime you are returning from a leave of absence, whatever kind of leave it is, whether it's a furlough or a leave of absence, you are always subject to reserve should your seniority require it. So
yeah.
short answer, probably yes.
Yeah, yes. Depending on where you're based,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Okay. Let's see here. All right, I'm going to skip down a little bit to vacations, and then we'll come back up to a few of these. because I know we've got unemployment questions also. Okay, Marty, before we get started on the vacations, do you want to just kind of give them an overview of how the vacation process is working?
Okay, sure. Because there's some components to it. You have different parts of vacation, folks that were furloughed, you have different parts for a lot of you. Any vacation that you accrued for last year, you will be bidding in the primary round of vacation bidding, and that's going to open, let me double check my dates here. That is going to open February 1st at noon, Dallas time. It closes on Wednesday, March 3rd, at noon on Dallas time, and then those will be awarded and processed then for March 8th. So there's a lot of dates coming up pretty quickly for vacation bidding. If you rolled over your vacation or you deferred your vacation, some of those vacation dates, those are going to be bid in the secondary round of vacation bidding. And those dates, that one starts on March 9th, and it's going to close on March 16th, and then it's awarded March 20th. If you miss any of those dates, that's all in a hotline that we sent out on January 4th, and then, of course, they'll be published on the Flight Service webpage as well. And then those of you that have some dates for vacation that were scheduled in December, January, February, and March, those are going to be classified as unscheduled days that you will be rebidding. And again, those are secondary round of bidding for those dates.
So if they have vacation, let's say December through March, and they're in their unscheduled vacation, right? So they can find that in on Crew Portal. They can use those dates still to try and rebid, right? A monthly rebid for April, right? So they would, the date for that is February, right?
It's usually around the 6th or 7th.
But that would have to be done in February. We'll get that information out to them if they want to do that. And if they don't end up monthly rebidding with those unscheduled days, then they go into their secondary vacation bid.
Correct.
Okay.
And any of those accruals are going to show up on the vacation management system. When you look at it, it's all broken out. You'll see your current accrual, and then you'll see unscheduled days. So you'll know how many days you're bidding in each round,
Okay.
Primary or secondary.
Perfect. And they did accrue for December, so they have that also. They did not accrue for October and November, but they did, all recalls did not lose any longevity seniority, which is good.
Yeah.
So they would not lose any time as far as their vacation or their pay stuff, right, because of that. Okay, great. Okay, let's see what kind of, if you covered all these questions. Okay. Let's see here. Let's do this one. Will vacation days balloted for April 2021, which are no longer available, be increased by that number of days available for the 2021-2022 vacation ballot? So this person has April 2021 vacation.
Right. So they'll be able to take that vacation, or you can, well, no, I guess you have to, or you can, well, you can't rebid it, because.
Yeah, if they're, right. If they're back, you know, this is something that I think we can discuss with the company, that if those flight attendants aren't back, right, then it should be treated the same. So, yeah, we'll put that on our.
January, February vacation day.
Put it on our list.
Yeah.
Okay. I rolled my vacation into this year. How do I bid for those days with the new vacation bid? So that, they must mean they rolled it over into the next, well, it is this year now, yeah, 2020.
Right. So those will be then secondary.
And the secondary bid. Okay.
And that is contractual. It's not any different than somebody who was on leave that have deferred vacation or anything like that.
Okay, I think you covered all of these with vacation. This is why it is really important to make sure you're signed up for the APFA hotline. We will definitely get this information out and remind you on a regular basis. The last thing we want anyone to do is to miss the vacation bidding time frame. So just make sure you're signed up to get the APFA hotline. Okay, so let's go to unemployment and make sure we cover some of these questions. I know we still have many others, but let's go to unemployment. We've got David Arnett on. He is our unemployment specialist who's been working hard throughout this entire time frame to make sure everyone fills out those unemployment forms correctly. So David, we've got, it looks like 3 questions for you. First one is, I have been able to navigate the unemployment process. I took the 15-month, it says I have not been able, sorry, I missed the word. I have not been able to navigate the unemployment process. I took the 15-month leave and was told I may qualify for unemployment, but as of now, have not received any. I cannot reach anyone on the phone or print out an application, and have not found any building where I can stand in line to start the process. Can you help me?
Sure, Julie. So the first thing that I would really want to know is where, what state are you applying for benefits in? And I also would like to direct you to our resources on the APFA website. We have, not only have we done base-specific videos in October to go through the unemployment process, but we have your base information broken down by state. So I encourage you to read all the information found on our website. It is a wealth of resources. And in addition to that, if after reading through that you still aren't able to apply or have questions, you can email unemployment@apfa.org, and either Kelly or myself will respond to your email.
Great. And yes, it's a wealth of information there, and all of those videos are on the website. So I highly recommend, and they're state by state, so I highly recommend watching those if you haven't yet. Okay, next question. Can you please help us to get AA to not only report our 70-hour monthly paycheck as regular wages, but leave pay, or code it as a way UI knows we are not actively working, so it doesn't affect us from receiving help from the UI benefits. As for us new hires, 70 hours doesn't pay our rent, and we will be left with no extra help if our wages are not coded properly. David?
Yeah, sure, Julie. So this is something that we brought up to American on last week's call and through an email as well. So at last communication, they were going to check with payroll to see if there was another way that this could be reported. We do know that our claimants that are not part of the top 3,000 and can't pick up any hours are only paid 70 hours, and that was really made clear to the company. So we'll have to circle back with them to see if there are any updates with reporting the wages as some type of different way that would still allow the claimants to get unemployment benefits.
And I think the next question is pretty much the same. What do we do about unemployment, specifically in California? Can we continue to certify, or should we stop certifying?
So this is not specific to California or any other state. It is the claimant's option whether or not he or she chooses to continue to certify. I will say that if you do continue to certify, that whatever wages that you report to the state must match what is reported by American. And just as a reminder, these wages are reported on a quarterly basis in the months for which they are paid, not in which they are earned. So this is different than most state unemployment programs where you report the wages in the weeks that they are actually earned and not when they're paid. So just be careful with that in case you are audited by the state. Thanks,
David. Okay, we're going to move into some pay questions that we have, and for those in the room so that you're aware of where we're heading next. The first question, Brian Walsh, I think you're going to help us answer. Is there a 2-month pay deferral because of the furlough? I am supposed to move to another pay step in April. Will I not get that next raise until June? Or was there not any change to the pay step?
Well, I'd like to share a little good news is that there was no change to any of the pay steps. So your pay, your steps for vacation and pay will continue on as if you were never furloughed.
Great, thank you. Okay, next question is seniority and reserve rotation. It is my understanding seniority paused for the 2 months while furloughed, October through November. Did seniority begin to accrue again in December 1st? How does this pause, restart dates affect the switch from 1 on, 1 off to 3 on, to 1 on, 3 off? Reserve rotation. So reserve rotation is the question.
So this continues on the same as I was just saying, that your rotation continues on as if you were never furloughed.
Right. So
So you'll.
really by your seniority, yes. Okay. Mark Littleton, I think you're going to take this one. I was due for a raise in November 2020, but furloughed in October. Now that I've been recalled, when will my raise go into effect?
Hi, your raise will be in effect now, effective December. Thanks to the PSP, it restores your longevity as if you had not been furloughed. It did not contain, however, any back pay or make whole mechanism. So when you come back on the payroll, you'll be at your new higher pay rate, but you won't see any increase paid backwards.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, next question. I became a first-time home buyer in late 2019. The furlough hit me hard, especially hard due to having a mortgage and taking out loans for renovations. I would have been okay with taking a temporary pay cut to save my job. Did APFA consider negotiating a temporary pay cut as an option, or did they decide that maintaining pay for the most senior flight attendants was more important? Well, I can tell you with what we've been facing this past year and over the number of flight attendants that we're over, there's no pay cut that we could have honestly been able to take that would have been able to fix this, okay? The PSP was so important for us to get in order for us to be able to make sure that all flight attendants' pay and health care was provided for you. So I can also tell you in July of this year, I signed a letter and sent it to the company, as well as AFA President Sarah Nelson, and as well as TW 556 Lynn Montgomery, who is the Southwest Flight Attendants President. The three of us signed a letter and sent it off to our CEOs and said, we are not taking concessions. We have been down that road before, and for those of us who have been here for many years, we know once we take concessions, it takes us a very long time to get that money back. So I definitely understand how hard this was on you. I'm happy that you're recalled now, and we're trying to get you back as soon as possible. But really, at the end of the day, it's important that when you come back to work, you have a job that pays you well, and that you understand that we definitely thought about that when sending those letters off. We have been down that road, many of us, and it did not work well for everyone on the property, not just the senior flight attendants, it's for everyone. So I'm glad you're back at work, and we'll do everything we can to help you through this time. Next question is, did APFA executive officers who were furloughed continue to receive full pay from the union during the furlough? The APFA executive officers that were furloughed are on a leave. They have elected positions, and absolutely, yes, they did receive pay because they are in elected positions. The process for this is definitely something that was set up a long time ago, so that if we were on a strike, if we were on a furlough, that these positions would stay intact, and that we would not, it would be very difficult to replace these two positions for a few months, and it would be very costly. And two of them are in the room, and I'm very thankful they were here during this time frame, because it has been a lot of work. And I'm glad to be where we're at today and having all of our furloughed flight attendants back. Let's see here. Okay, Mark Littleton. I am being displaced from where I was furloughed and was awarded my third choice in recall-based ballot. I've already filled out priority of return form. My question is, once I have decks in place, I'm not sure I'm reading this. I have decks, if I place myself on the transfer list, okay, for the first and second base choices, and then get awarded my second base choice, will I still be considered for priority of return to my original base, or will the vacancy mutual transfer to my second priority base void my priority of return to where I really want to be? Good question. Mark, you want to answer that one?
Yes, I will answer that one, and it's a great question, because this is actually something that changed during the period of time that you may have been on furlough. The short answer to your question is a subsequent transfer will not negate your priority right of return to the base that you wish to go to. And that was a change that was approved in the contract, because if you read the contract language, it would say something different, but that has been changed by an agreement with the company, so that if you have a priority right of return to a base, you can now put in a transfer request to another base, your first choice, your second choice, even just a new choice, and you'll still have your priority right of return to your original base.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, we've got quite a few questions about furlough, and it looks like the majority of the questions are all around the same topic with furlough, as far as what will happen April 1st, right? That's kind of the million-dollar question that everybody seems to have. And because of time, I'm just going to kind of, give you an answer based on what we know today, right? And Mark, if you want to add in, I see, you also can add in if anybody in the room wants to add in if I'm missing anything. I can tell you that every meeting I have been in, and every meeting that the company has been, even on the furloughed town halls, the recall town halls, our company is not talking about your return to work as temporary. This is not temporary return to work. You are being recalled to come back and work full time. If in April or May or June, right, we are overstaffed and we have more flight attendants than we need, there is a process outlined in our contract to, again, offer voluntary leave, right? We will go back through the processes that you saw in the last year and offer leaves, right? There's voluntary separation. A lot of this is outlined in our contract in section 23. So none of us really have the answers to exactly what's going to happen April 1st. I'm not sure the company does. A lot will depend on the vaccine, how fast we can all get the vaccine, how fast and everyone in the world can get the vaccine, so that we can return to all of the countries that we were flying to. We are figuring this out on a day-by-day basis. As we speak, we've got countries who are now requiring testing for us when we fly there. And so it's hard to say today exactly what will happen in April or May or June. We're hopeful. Our company is definitely very hopeful. They are, this is quite a process to bring all of our flight attendants back. It's not an easy process, as you can see. It's taking months for us to get all 8,000 back. And so the thought process is that we are hopeful that April, May, June, we will not be in the position of being overstaffed, but if we are, we will follow our contract. We will do what is required for us to try and mitigate any possible furloughs in the future, and that is outlined in our contract. If that were to happen again, you would receive a WARN notice. That whole process that you went through already would start all over again. I do have a lot of questions here about, will we see the 70-hour leaves again? A lot of that is going to depend on if there's another PSP, right, after March 31st. Of course, we'll be doing everything we can to try, and if we need more government funding at that time, we'll ask all of you to write to your senators and your congressmen to request that. We'll, of course, have more rally events and do as much as we possibly can to keep you all with your pay and your health care. So I would say stay tuned. I don't want you to be worried today that that's exactly what's going to happen in April. I don't think that. But as the company is saying, and I have to say this also, there's no guarantees at this point. of what is going to happen this year. But I can tell you, every meeting we have been in, the goal is to make sure we do not go through that process again. Mark, as you look through these furlough, and Brian, as you look through these furlough questions, is there something that's jumping out at you that we have not answered? The WARN notices, if you were to be furloughed again, the furlough pay starts all over again, right? So if you've been flying for 8 years, you would get the 4 months of furlough pay based on your 12-month look back. So again, we would just go back to our contract for those answers. Mark, do you see anything in the furlough that I did not cover?
No, I think you've touched on most everything, Julie. It really would just be starting the entire, if it comes to that, it would be starting the entire process over, again, with all the steps that are required in our contract.
Right. Okay, so let's look down. I think we can maybe cover a few more here. One of the questions is, why did this town hall meeting take so long? Well, the company had 2 meetings, and it was basically, those meetings were about the bid process, right? A lot of them in benefits. And we knew that we didn't really want to just repeat what was being said in the company meetings. And we knew if we waited till after the process, we'd have a lot of questions about how you got your base bids, a lot of the questions about the recall process. So we decided to wait until we were at this stage of the process and answer other questions other than hopefully repeating those, not repeating those what the company had. Let's see here. And I think in this same question, the flight attendant is asking, why is it taking so long to get our flight attendants back on the line? And as I stated earlier, this isn't just about 8,000 flight attendants coming back, and it's not just about American Airlines, 8,000 flight attendants or 19,000 American Airlines employees. This is all of the airline employees that are coming back to work. You know, it's hundreds of thousands of employees coming back to work, needing fingerprints before they can come back. So we wish it could be faster, but there was no way to make it any faster than what we're currently doing. Okay. You guys, if you can look through the questions, I want to make sure if there's something that we really haven't covered that we're able to. I don't want anyone walking away from this and going, oh, they didn't answer my question.
Julie, this is Mark, can I add one real quickly, because I've seen a couple of questions come in about financial assistance for flight attendants who were recalled to a base other than the one they were furloughed from, or were displaced from their base. And what kind of financial support they receive. Yes, you are entitled to moving expenses in either of those situations, and how that works is outlined in Section 5 of the contract, moving expenses. We'll tell you what is covered, and then there's a process to follow that should be outlined in the FAQs that the company has posted and the ones that we'll be posting as well, about how to start that process for arranging for a paid move to your new location if you choose to relocate. And you have up to 3 years to exercise that decision.
Thank you, Mark. And there's also a relocation informational packet that kind of breaks down that information. And that is located on JetNet, and it's under the returning to work portion of JetNet. I'm trying to think, Brian, can you tell them where that is exactly?
Yep. So if you're logging into JetNet, on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see a little square that says for recalled members. So click on that. Once you get to the next screen, on the left-hand side, you'll see something that says APFA represented flight attendants. You'll want to click on that. Once you click on that link, it will take you to a landing page that goes through a whole host of information and FAQs and other relevant pieces of information that you'll need to either return to the flying process, relocation packet, amongst other things.
Okay, great. Also, if you're moving, you are entitled to settling days. So we will put more information out about settling days. If you are displaced, you are entitled to 3 paid settling days and 5 days total, 2 unpaid. And if you are voluntarily transferring to another base, then you're entitled to 5 settling days that are unpaid. So there'll be more information out about those settling days for you, and of course you can take those, you would be able to take those, especially if you're moving in the month before, the month after that you are moving. Go ahead, Brian.
Another question that I've been seeing a few times is that if you submit your party of return, if you have to input your transfer index, and the answer is yes. You still need to put your transfer back to the base that you have your party of return form on file for. So if you were displaced from Miami and you're filing a party of return form for Miami, you will have to enter into DEX for a transfer request to Miami. So it is a 2-part process, so please make sure you do both parts of those when you're submitting your party of return and your transfer request.
Okay, and let's walk them through to make sure they know where to actually see their name on the transfer list, right? Because that's one of the things we want to make sure, anything that you can double check and make sure your name is there correctly, you would want to go into JetNet and go to Flight Service, go to Crew Resources, and then Planning, and then Vacancy Transfers. And in Vacancy Transfers, you have pending transfer requests. So we'll make sure to get that out in a hotline, but you can check there, see if your name is on the list to get to the base that you want to be at. Anything else, you guys? I know we've got a few, but I think we've covered all of the topics. I think we've got a lot of great questions. We'll make sure we kind of formulate our next hotline and add some of these questions in. And if we didn't answer your question specifically, you can always email us, contact@apfa.org, scheduling@apfa.org if it's a scheduling question. And we will do whatever we can to help you throughout this process. And I think that's about it. Larry, anything from your department? Larry Salas just joined us. We did have a question about the grievance process, about the grievance that was filed, and I talked about that a little bit. They wanted to know timing, how long something like that could take to actually go through. But I said, absolutely, we're going to try and resolve any issues that we possibly can without, having to draw it out into.
That'll go through the base process, and the notice of dispute will be heard at the base. And if it cannot be resolved at the base, the process then comes to APFA headquarters and the SBA department to follow through with the grievance. But as Julie said, we'll be looking at that grievance and working through that.
So most importantly, we are so happy to have you back. I know everyone on the property today can't wait for you to be back out on the line. And we hope that you're anxious to come back too. We were very excited to see how quickly all of you submitted your acceptance. I think every day the number was actually very large right off the bat, and it really was exciting to see how many of our flight attendants who were recalled are coming back, and couldn't wait to, obviously, even through the holidays, get that acceptance in. So welcome back. We'll do everything we possibly can to make this a smooth transition for you, and we can't wait to see you out on the line.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.